You are watching or listening to Perm and Associates. For more information, go to www.rperm.com. Hey, good day to you all. Welcome to Perm and Associates. I'm your host, Randy Purham. And hey, it is Friday. And this is the time we take to thank our men and women who are serving our nation around the world, sacrificing and committing their time and freedom in protecting our freedom, our Constitution, our way of life. We thank you and we salute you, and we wish you a safe journey back home to your friends, family, loved ones, wherever they may be. Hey, today we got a very special guest with us. Joining us by phone, actually, is Dr. Mary Grabar, excuse me. And she is I'm telling you, folks. I'm excited to talk with her because she actually has a very impressive background. And but without further ado, let me do this. And she is the author of Debunking FDR, The Man and the Myths. She is a resident fellow at the Alexander Hamilton Institute for the Study of Western Civilization and the founder of the Dissident Professor Education Project. She taught at the college level for 20 years, most recently at Emory University, and her work has been published by the Federalist, Town Hall, Front Page Magazine, City Journal, American Greatness, and Academic Questions. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing the some and presenting the others, Dr. Mary Grabar. Good afternoon, or good morning, rather. Good morning,
Good
Dr.
morning.
Hayden. How are you today?
I'm doing just great. How are
Okay.
you?
I'm doing well. I just got to get myself together here. Uh, Doctor, I want to ask you. I see that you're at the Alexander Hamilton Institute. I am I guess you could say a lover of Alexander Hamilton's plays, the Hamilton play, and I kind of like his background and everything else. So I'm wondering, what is the Alexander Hamilton Institute? Can you tell us about that place?
Yes, it's a nonprofit educational organization, and we are off campus, a short distance from Hamilton College. It was
Uh,
originally supposed to be on the campus to provide an alternative for students. It was founded by three professors, two history professors, one of whom is Robert Paquette, who is the president today, and an economics professor. And it was founded in 2007. And the reason it's not on campus and that it's in an old mansion on the village square is that the left-wing radicals on campus tried to take it over.
of
So
course.
this is an institute for the study of Western civilization, and they do not like Western civilization. So fortunately, with some donors, they were able to purchase the building, which is where I live, along with another fellow resident, and where I write my books and articles.
Oh, okay, awesome. I, I I did not know such an institution or establishment existed. See, folks, we learn something every day coming on here. So, well, I tell you, thank you for that information. You know, President Biden. I want to get into because you talk about presidents and stuff, and we're gonna get into that too. But President Biden recently was diagnosed, and or shall I say, we finally were told because he probably had it for a while, prostate cancer. But in your professional opinion, does this compound into his presidential legacy in a negative way? And will we say that history will give him a pass for his failed presidency because of this prognosis?
Yeah, well, David Axelrod a few days ago said, we should not focus on his cognitive decline. He needs our sympathy right now. So I think, the timing is a little bit suspicious to me, because, President Trump sent his, wishes for his recovery and so forth. And what else can you do? You hate to see anyone suffer, but it's just another part of the fabric of lies that has surrounded his administration, and his handlers, are to blame, his wife. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, maybe like FDR, it will play into sympathy for him by the historians, but it's hard to tell at this point. But clearly, there has been a massive cover-up, and even the liberal outlets are coming out and saying, oh, we need to make sure this doesn't happen anymore, as the Washington Post editorial said this morning.
Yes, and to that point, you're right. There is a massive cover-up going on, and it's a travesty to not only the American people but to the rest of the world, because his presidency affected the whole world, and so it's borderline criminal. I would say actually it's beyond criminal that things played out the way that they did. And you mentioned FDR, and I'm glad you did, because you have a book here, Debunking FDR, the Man and the Myths, and FDR, he was an interesting character in my opinion. I studied him for a little bit during my tenure in college, and I was like trying to force myself to like him, but I just really couldn't bring myself to it. I was just like, okay, he's marginal at best in my book. But for FDR, he too was shrouded in medical issues that he hid from the public. He had a heart, I believe heart disease or some kind of heart condition, and then subsequently polio struck him and everything else. And so he also played the sympathy role with the American people, which subsequently got him 4 terms, almost 4 terms in office. Talk to us about debunking FDR, the Man and the Myths, and what you're unfolding in this book here, Doctor.
Yeah, well, of course, the liberal position by the vast majority of historians, because the vast majority of historians are the ones who have written books about FDR, as well as textbooks and the schoolroom lessons, is that, he was a great leader. He brought us out of the Depression and defeated fascism. But, the big answer is that he actually prolonged the Depression, and it may have been deliberately, because the Depression allowed him to get the programs into place that he always wanted. And that's what I cover in my book. So I go, unlike, there are some conservative histories and biographies dealing with the FDR presidency, but they don't go into his early years, his upbringing, his family history, his days at, prep school and Harvard, and then as a young lawyer, and then as a New York State senator, then as assistant secretary of the Navy, and his run for vice presidency. Then he was struck with polio at the age of 39 in 1941, or I'm sorry, 1921. And then, spent several years just, keeping his hands in politics, but, not in public office. And then in 1928, he was asked to run for governor, and he did, narrowly won, was governor of New York, and then won re-election. And as soon as he won election, for governor, he was talked about as being a presidential candidate, especially after the Depression hit and people were so unhappy with, Hoover. They were blaming, the state of the economy on him. And he is, so Roosevelt is, a common phrase that I came across to describe him by the liberal historians was that he was a traitor to his class. Now, he grew up in the Hudson River Valley among the Astors and, the wealthy people, from the old Dutch families. And, it was said that he was a traitor to that class because his programs helped the working class, the common people, and taxed the wealthy. But that's not the case at all. He was still, a member of that upper class. He thought of himself as lord of the nation, and he was beholden to their interests. And actually, the New Deal programs were implemented in order to get him reelected to a fourth term. That's largely how he got reelected, and to help his friends and family. And so the National Recovery Administration was a great scheme for crony capitalism. So that's a big myth that I debunk in my book, and I do that by looking at his background and what he did also leading up to the presidency. So everything was set in place by the time he was elected president.
Yeah. Yes, and thank you for that, Doctor, because it was like I said, he was like borderline, in my book, like, okay, he did some good things, yes, got America out of the Great Depression and brought in the New Deal programs, which established Social Security and everything. But then it's like, on the flip side of that, in the same token, in the same breath, a lot of these programs we see today were orchestrated for the issues that we are having today in society, in the government structure. He exploded the bureaucracy. He exploded the judiciary with the activist judges and everything else. So it's kind of like it was like shrouded in, oh, this is good for you all, but when you peel back the onion, it's like, oh man, why did you do this to us? So it's an interesting, I guess you could say, dichotomy, if you will, that his presidency brought what it did, to the American people. So I thank you for taking the time to debunk all these things, because I know the American people will thoroughly enjoy reading this and actually probably have a different light or a different perspective in how they view FDR and his presidency. And like we just mentioned earlier, going forward with President Biden, I'm sure the same thing's going to happen, because there's books coming out today, that are already, saying like, oh no, this is what really happened. So unfortunately for FDR, it took what 40-50 years for people to like really peel back the onion as to what he did as a president. So thank you for that. Appreciate you.
Oh, you're welcome.
I want to get your next book here, because ladies and gentlemen, if you're for the listeners out there, I know there's the audio version listeners, because there's some people that don't do Facebook and Twitter and all X and all that good stuff. You can go to marygrabar.com and pick up all three of her books there. And for those that are watching, the link is right there at the bottom of the screen there if you're not paying attention. It's marygrabar.com. You can pick up all three books that we're going to be discussing here. And the next one is something that I kind of, a topic that I held dear to my heart when it first came out, the 1619 Project. Because I wrote a couple of articles a couple of years, when it's around this time frame. When it came out, I was just like, why is this woman getting all this clout for this BS? but Doctor, talk to us about debunking the 1619 Project, because it's like I said, that was a crazy few years there that we had to deal with this one.
Yeah, well, the 1619 Project has made its creator, Nicole Hannah-Jones, a very wealthy woman.
Hmm.
She get The last time I looked into how much she was paid, she was getting up to $50,000 for a 1 hour appearance. That's pretty good money in my book.
Yeah.
But the book is full of falsehoods, and the thing is, the year 1619 is not something that she discovered. It's been around. It's when the first Africans came to Virginia, and it has been celebrated as sort of the founding, different kind of founding. But when the Black historians in the past, they saw that as a marker from which to measure progress. So this is the way we came here, they say, unlike other immigrants, but look at how far we've come. And so she pretends that she is someone who has discovered this year, and what she wants to do, she wants to replace 1776 as our founding with the 1619.
Hmm.
And she calls this country a slaveocracy. She said our country was, basically founded by slaves. And of course, slavery, did have a lot to do with this country, but it wasn't the whole thing. And it was eventually eliminated, and long before other parts of the world did. And so she presents this very lopsided view, also in terms of overlooking the fact that, slavery was going on in every single country in the 1600s and the 1700s, except Antarctica. And, that the slaves in Africa had been captured by rival chiefs, and there were raids on villages. And, so it was a worldwide phenomenon. But, and she also goes after Jefferson. She really attacks Jefferson. And Jefferson, did not like slavery. He wanted to end it, but he wanted to do it peacefully. He foresaw the Civil War. He knew that this would be, something that would cause fighting and division in the country, and he tried to think of different ways to end it. He did end the slave trade, I think it was in 1807 or something like that. So she ignores all that. So it's a very lopsided view of American history.
Yes, I agree. And I said to myself right now, I said, man, if she can get paid to like revisit and rewarp history like that, maybe I could write some stuff and say, like Kanye West did, was like slavery was a choice, like, and going and speaking to him and like, yeah, this is why slavery was a choice. They said, yeah, we got nothing else better to do, so we might as well do this and get paid for it, So, but it was she was an interesting character. And the 1619 project, to your point, Doctor, that it was a pivotal time because that was kind of like the establishing of the breakage of getting away from England and everything else and establishing the 13 colonies and what have you. And so to say for her to say that that was the actual time frame of the American founding, all the historians at that time was like, oh.
Yes.
Did you miss this whole period of the Revolutionary War and the charters and the establishing of the like, what are you talking about, lady? But I don't know. She was a strange character. But a lot of my friends, they actually like they fell into that trap, and they were just, I had so many online debates about it, so many phone calls like, how can you not support this? And I was just like, because it's not true. Like, are you like, we sat in the same history classes in high school? Like, what part of this are you not understanding? And so it was just interesting times. But the next book here, Doctor, I had to when I saw this, I said, Howard Zink. I was like, why does that name sound familiar to me? I was like, it was like escaping me at the moment. And then I looked it up real quick, and I was like, oh, him. Okay, yeah. Tell us about him. I'll let you tell everybody about who Howard Zink is. Zink.
Okay. Yeah. So he was born in 1922, died in 2010, was a member of the Communist Party from about 1948 to 1953, and then became a secret communist. So his history follows the lines of what you would expect a communist to say about the United States, that it also was built on, the backs of slaves, workers, immigrants, prisoners. Of course, all prisoners are political prisoners. And so his book, A People's History of the United States, which was published in 1980, it still sells. It's still a top-selling history book.
Yeah.
It's been adopted by classrooms across the country. Sometimes teachers would sneak it in, as I would discover when I went to teachers' conferences incognito. I wasn't a K through 12 teacher. I was a college professor, but I take notes, and it's also being taught in colleges of education. So future history and social studies teachers are being taught American history from this very distorted Marxist history. So, Howard Zinn was a lousy professor. He was an anti-Vietnam War activist and a secret communist.
Yeah, yeah. And, he too was an interesting character, and for his, I guess it's not a surprise that he got as far as he did in his career, because the whole entire, I guess I'm not gonna say the entire, but the vast majority of the educational ecosystem in the United States is very far left and socialist leaning and communist
Yes.
leaning. So it was like no surprise and no wonder that he was able to tout and espouse the things that he was doing for all these years. And for him, it was, I guess you could say, he found his haven in doing so by not allowing to be drowned out, because there was no cancel culture, if you will. So he was able to get away with it. And there was another character around that time. He was from Russia that was trying to do some counter programming to that. Kind of sending warning signals to America, like, hey, y'all be on the lookout for people like this that's going to infiltrate your education system. And that fell on deaf ears. I can't recall his name. I want to say it's like Jakowski or something or another. But he gave a pretty long speech back in the '60s, late '60s, about this very thing. And for Howard Zinn, what is the one thing for you, Doctor, that stood out that he did in his tenure that resonates to this very day in our education system?
Oh, well, one of his accomplishments, as he saw it, was to eliminate Columbus Day as a holiday. So he was very proud of that fact. And as I point out in Debunking Howard Zinn, he really did not present, Columbus as a rapist, a genocidal maniac. That story was circulating. He plagiarized from his friend, who was not a historian, but a screenwriter and a novelist, and just spun this story about Christopher Columbus claimed he'd read all his diaries and so forth. And so, the legacy is that Columbus was not the discoverer. He was not a hero. As a matter of fact, the nation, the United States, is illegitimate because it was stolen from the Indians, and Columbus was this evil, rapacious, capitalist, and he was looking for gold and chopping off the hands of Indians who did not produce the gold that he wanted. And it's all false. And it goes back to, Karl Marx's version of American history. So he's just recycling that, but he does it in a very effective way. He was a very good propagandist. So, 1980, this is like when the nation is, right, Reagan and all the leftists are, bemoaning the fact that the 1960s are over with. And he's using the jargon of the 1960s and tapping into that nostalgia for the 1960s and updating the Marxist rhetoric for, the time period. And he was very successful at that.
Wow. Interesting. Very interesting. Because here in Texas, just recently, we passed the school choice bill. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I know some folks are for it, some are against it, the voucher program and all that. I'm neutral on all that. But the fact that there was legislation that was pushed in the Texas House here, and it's going to become. I believe there's a bill in the Senate, in the U.S. Senate now, for the same thing, the federalized school choice. This gives parents the option to opt out of that madness. So I guess it's a good thing that we're taking back control of our education system. And to that, I want to ask you, Doctor, Dissident Professor Education Project. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so that was, when I was still teaching college, I was writing these articles, and that was getting me fired from my part-time teaching position. So every time I'd have an op-ed, and the department chair or the president of the college would find out about it, all of a sudden they didn't have any more classes for me. And I was, sending out articles to a list that I had. And one day I went to my post office box and I had a check for $500. And I thought, oh, well, I would like to give this guy a tax write-off. To me, that was a lot of money. And I decided to go and establish a nonprofit. Well, around that time, Lois Lerner, as you may remember, was going after the Tea Party groups. Yeah. And I was also critical of Common Core, the education program that was promoted by President Obama and Arne Duncan. And so it took me about almost 2 years and a lot of hassle and a lot of extra expense to finally get nonprofit status. It was a process that should have taken 3 months. So I post articles there. I also have an email list. I publish, as you said earlier, places like the Federalist Chronicles. And so I send out notices, and that's a great way for people to stay in touch with me. So I'm a dissident professor, so it's dissident prof. It felt like living in, Stalin's Russia under Obama to me, at least at least in terms of education, because I felt he was really corrupting it and doing it for ideological reasons.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Stalin, Russia. You're from Slovenia, correct?
Yes, I was actually born in Slovenia when it was part of communist Yugoslavia. My parents, when I was 2 years old, literally had to sneak over the border to get into Austria and be in a refugee camp for a while.
Yeah. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, see, this is like real life stuff, and we I'm not going to say Americans, but we as Americans, we're oblivious to, these kind of, I guess you say, issues that surround us on a day-to-day basis. We tend to just take it for granted that, we have a constitution, and we got these laws, and these people can't break these laws because they're going to get in trouble. But they are breaking these laws and they're not getting in trouble and they're getting away with these kind of things, and they're indoctrinating our kids, and our kids turn into adults and they're doing the same thing to the next generation, and it's a perpetual thing that we're dealing with. And we have people like you that come along and say, hey, this is what's going on, and then you get fired and canceled, and you have to go through the whole rigmarole of trying to get the message out there, and it's a never-ending cycle. And we wonder why society is where it is today, and this is why we as people we don't pay attention enough. And I thank you, doctor, for taking not only the sacrifice and the time, but the energy that it takes to, because I know the energy that you have to put in to do all of this, to get it out there and wake people up. And I commend you and I salute you for that, because it's a lot. And closing out, tell people how they can follow you and support you.
Well, go to dissidentprof.com, sign up for my newsletter. If you want to read my articles, they're posted at marygrabar.com. And I'm on X or Twitter, just Mary Grabar, and I'm also on Facebook. So, please do sign up for my newsletter, and I hope my books are helpful. And thank you to you for having me on your program and helping me get the word out.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And you said the website's dissidentprof.com?
Correct.
Okay, got it. Okay. Yes, total pleasure. And thank you once again, and be safe out there, have fun, and don't let these idiots get to you.
Oh, I won't. Thank you.
They will try. All right.
Oh,
Doctor.
yeah.
All right, doctor. You be safe, and talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. Mary Grabar. Listen, hey, folks, 3 books, three fantastic books at that you need to check out. And once again, for the listeners out there, Dissident Prof, DISSIDENTPROF.com. Go check that out. Sign up for a newsletter. Get informed, folks. And as I always say, or I should say, I regurgitate what Thomas Jefferson said: an informed society is at the very heart of our democracy. And also you can check out her other website, marygrabar.com, right there at the bottom there on my underneath my chin, blending in with my red shirt a little bit. marygrabar.com, and check out her books. You can also pick them up on Amazon as well. They are on Amazon also. So for whichever preferred method of purchasing you desire. Folks, I'm going to jump up out of here. Coming up in the this evening at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, you have Pastor David Lowry, who is streaming on Facebook under his banner there, and also on his Rumble channel, Let the Truth Be Told. So check that out. And folks, I'm going to jump up out of here because it's Friday, and you know what I do on Fridays. I bounce up out of here early. So with that being said, I will catch you all later. God willing, God bless, and see y'all Monday, I think. Yeah, I should be here. So, ciao. Be safe. Take care. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in today. Please be sure to follow, like, subscribe, and share, and go to rpurham.com for more information. See you all soon. Take care. God bless.